Um, our debate is about like why should animals should stay in captivity or why should they not stay in captivity. We believe that animals should stay in zoo captivity or in aquariums because of not just for human benefits but also for like the animals' benefits. For human benefits, for what we gain out of it is mostly for education, mostly just to educate the youth, well, not just the youth, but also the whole public, everyone about animals, species that they don't even know that even exists. Also for the youth to gain a really good experience to say like, oh, I've seen this animal before in real life. I was able to be this amount of feet away from it. It was just a great experience to see one. Also, another reason why this is why we should keep animals in zoo captivities is because it's a lot more beneficial for them, not just for the humans, but for the animals. It's healthier for once. The zoo environment is a lot healthier or a lot safer than a wild environment.
They also help reserve the species, the endangered species, so they help reproduce the animals until they are to the actual level where they won't be endangered or at risk of being extinct. So yeah, they help reserve the species and save it.
What extinct means is that for the depopulation or decline of the amount of number of species in one population, so pretty much it means that like for a short term that it's not, animals are just being declined, their population is going down, there's not so many of them, so zoos are helping to not just preserve their life, but even make them thrive instead of just survive, pretty much. And most of the animals, like in the animal kingdom, are kind of getting extinct. We went to a zoo once, and we saw many signs there of how endangered they are. Most of them, some of them, yeah, sure, they are still. They're not endangered as much, they're safe, but their risk at being endangered is still greatly due to habit loss, being hunted, predators. Also, besides human rights, another way why should they stay in zoo captivity is for even entertainment-wise. It'll give people something else to do. It's a lot better to watch it on Animal Planet. Also, it's a lot not healthier, well, we provide so much for the animals too. If
They provide food and protection. They help keep their habitat clean.
For example, like the types of food like an elephant would get in its own environment is fruit leaves, hay, and barks, pretty much branches. At a zoo, they feed elephant hay, hoof stock pellets, produce browse, palm frods, and bamboo, which is a whole lot more what they get in their own natural environment. Also, they get trained to live in that same environment. We try to produce the best medical, also the best. We try to replicate their environment as best as we could. Throw water, throw even real plants in the zoos. The humidity is also another factor they put in the zoos. And also, it's just like another, like just a safer environment for other factors, like they put up signs for no smoking for the zoos, not just for the animals, but also for the public.
They keep them under a diet
They
to make
keep,
sure they're healthy and not overweight or underweight.
and pretty much they just make sure that the animals are happy as they possibly could be without being in any other type of danger. And that's our opening introduction.
Alright, so then, negative teams, you want some time for
Yes.
prep or prospects, or prep time? Alright, you have 5 minutes.
Why is it better to go and see an animal at the zoo if an Animal Planet, they actually show them in a natural habitat? How do you learn in the zoo in that kind of artificial wildlife stuff than the actual thing in Animal Planet and such?
The way how it's not the same as like watching it on Animal Planet is like, sure, in Animal Planet is a lot pretty much cheaper. You get to stay at home, get a snack even there, but it's a greater experience if you actually meet the animal in person. You actually get to like feel like how and see how it actually reacts into the environment in person. And once when you have that experience, it's like you can literally tell other people, wow, I've done this, I've seen this, not just on TV, but in real life.
As far as the recreation for the habitat goes, how close do you guys get to the actual habitat? I mean, is it exactly the same, or is it just like a really cheap knockoff?
Well, it's about exactly the same. You actually get to be close to the animals, but not too close to the part where you can actually be endangered of being hurt by the animal.
But that doesn't answer my question about the habitat.
We don't put any fake grass. Once when I went over there, they had no such thing as fake grass. They throw in they even make rivers there, pools of water, waterfalls even for like the otters. They even put grass, not even like that fake grass that they put on football fields or anything like that.
And they also give them like a tent so they could have like their own shade so they won't be in the sun for too long.
But is that as close as to their natural habitat as
Yes,
they
it
can
is.
get?
We try our best to make a real replica of the environment. It's not as big as we will hope to, but it's a big enough environment for them to move around so they won't stay in caged up. Pretty much none of the animals are caged up. They have a lot of room for themselves.
You guys say you guys provide safety and food and everything that you guys are saying. Do you guys really pay attention to the animal itself? Like if it's like actually happy or it's just there? Like what do you think it should actually feel?
We have
Just answer the question.
zookeepers there, and they're not.
People that volunteer as well to help out with the animals and help educate others about the animals.
And they're the ones who pretty much train the animals, so they should know like how the animals feel, how they should react. Since Harley, like these are especially trained zookeepers, so they know what they're doing. If the animal is acting up, they will know how to respond to it and how to go with it.
Thank you. Alright, so, prep time, do you want more, or are you ready to go? 20 seconds, okay, hold on. You guys have a 7-minute speech, 4 minutes for your own case, and 2 minutes to repeat there.
Yes.
Okay. Starting now.
Can zoos' benefits for human education outweigh the harm to animal life? That is a resolution. And we are not for that. We are clearly against that. It doesn't seem right that human education should outweigh the own personal life of an animal.
I think we can all relate that as a young child. Maybe not all of us, but most of us, as we were learning about lions and tigers and bears, was enjoyable. However, that the moment once one of us ourselves, laid our eyes on the faces, are hard to assume. The faces of the boredom and anxiety of each of them was traumatizing. Each of them longed for the wild and the open outdoor world, a world without any cages or restraints. When I left, I didn't even give a second glance back to the zoo.
So if animals were able to live for so long out in the wild, raising their own young and being able to take care of themselves, why do we have them in captivity now? Sure, we might say that they're for programs, but after that, shouldn't you think we should just let them go back out? Our first definition, benefits, is something that promotes or changes or enhances the well-being of something. An advantage, something that someone or something gains, like an animal.
Human education, it's where you and me can just pretty much acquire information about something.
It's information that we as a species can gather to learn about other species. Harm, a physical injury or a mental damage, a moral injury, something that is wrong, injury that is deliberately inflicted on something.
An animal life, well, it's just a living being in existence.
All the life in a given place or time.
Our first claim, zoos cannot meet animals' natural and physical needs.
Our second claim, zoos take away the freedom from animals and it keeps in its exhibits. It doesn't give them any freedom at all. They are locked up for if not all, most of their lives. In an article by Naomi Bolton, paraphrased, it's that zoos will find it hard to sustain so much vegetation. Zoos cannot provide so much. The cost to keep replacing everything that the animals use up is too much. A cost that the wild won't charge. A zoo must pay to the animals' needs. And claim number 3, zoos provide a false view of the animal's habitat and on the animal's behavior. The way that animals react in zoos is not the way that they react in real life. Because their habitat is so much smaller than it is out there in the wild, some of them suffer from being in a space that's not big and open enough. So they just basically start like doing self-harm on themselves and other stuff to themselves because they just don't have enough space. And their behavior changes greatly because of that.
The space, the habitat, and the natural resources, zoos can't provide any of that. They can't provide what an animal really, truly needs. Zoos exist obviously for a reason. For, like what they said, human education. But they fall short. An animal's behavior is seldomly discussed, less observed. Only thing taught is that it's acceptable to control every aspect of an animal's life.
Zoos claim that they provide the animals with a natural habitat and it gives a distorted view of wildlife. Privacy and physical exercise lacks and push the animals over into the brink of sanity. A mental stimulation that resorts to an abnormal behavior. Oh yeah.
Okay, let's do 2 minutes.
You gotta repeat.
So all in all, we are refuting their case because most of the stuff that they said is not true. Most zoos are not either accredited enough and they do not give enough to the animals. The habitats are either too small or insufficient enough to recreate their own real habitat. For example, a polar bear's habitat. A polar bear does not live in a concrete area that is completely closed off and is a really small area. The area up in the north near Alaska where most of them live is not a giant rock.
For example, here in Tucson, one of our polar bears died. I think that's, well, it's obvious that zoos can't maintain an animal up to its actual normal, natural habitat. They say that they acquire information and they say that animals have an advantage, but they look over that to the actual animal itself by not even knowing that they actually commit mental damage to an actual living and existing animal. They prefer human education over an animal self-being.
Yes.
Okay. Thumbs up.
Contact.
So where do the animals go once their habitat is lost?
Well, that's the problem. We need to fix that first, and then we can put them back out to their habitat.
Well, what do you do in case their habitat is lost? What happens to the animal?
Don't they relocate?
And how are they going to find the resources that they need to survive?
They move around like they always do.
What does the zoos provide that the wild, what does the wild provide that the zoos does not? Due to like loss of habitat that have happened.
The wild can provide, well, pretty much anything that a zoo can provide, but a zoo would, it's just cost for the zoo, and in the wild it's just there, like it's not ever gonna go away, and it actually from there they like learn like their own thing, like, what they should be learning, while in the zoo they can't, they'll just be there waiting and doing to themselves.
Do you think it's a lot tougher to live in the wild or in the zoo?
I think it's a lot tougher to live in the zoos since you don't have to be relying on other people, for example, humans, to be feeding you and to be maintaining your area all the time. While in the wild, they could just easily relocate and always have an abundance of food and not be having to wait any time of day to be fed in particular.
How much room do you think an animal really needs to live normally?
It really all just depends on the animal in itself, for example. Some animals need a lot of space like an elephant, and some animals don't need as much space like otters.
Do you think animals worry about anything while they're living in the wild?
Well, yeah, I mean, food and for their young and stuff. I mean, in the zoos they probably don't. I'm not sure, man, I don't know. But, I mean, like,
To defend your case and attack your opponent.
We understand that how there's some areas where the wildlife there's ways how it provides a little bit more in some ways, like just all I could think about is just it provides more room for the animals, and that's basically it. For challenges for the animals to live in the wild, they have to find their own food. If they get injured, they're not going to have any medical attention. If predators come and attack them or eat them, and if they die, the population goes down. it's a lot harder to survive. Instead of their thriving, they're trying to survive instead. Also, for like our zoos, we also got a keeper's note, a zookeeper's note that we found. It quotes, this is from an anteater that was recently born. It has a family, pretty much. And it quotes, "We are excited to announce the birth of an anteater on September 27th, which was last month. Mom and the baby are doing great. If you are not able to see them, they have chosen to stay in their cozy barn." So in this, they didn't say that they choose to stay in the wild or leave the zoo. They chose to stay in their cozy barn. So that comes from the zookeeper's note. Also from the water.
Okay, so there were various signs at the zoo saying that what they did to the water came, what was that one? From Tucson Water, the company from Tucson Water. And then it quotes that water from this pool is collected and is used later for hosing sidewalks and water plants. So basically they do provide natural plants for the animals to make them feel like they are at the wild, and they also like help the plants grow, and they also preserve other species of plants as well.
So like how some zoos are like sponsored from their own water company, like how ours is sponsored by Tucson Water. The water that they get is not dirty. It's pretty much all filtered and clean. While in the wild, you're gonna have to like pretty much gamble. The animals pretty much have to gamble to bathe in it, drink it. It might have plankton, all this viruses in the water, while Tucson Water is like all filtered and clean. Also, they get trained well. They're pretty much not as wild as they really are. They get fed well. They're not going to get hungry at all. They're not going to starve. If injured, zoos provide medication for them immediately. They have longer...
They live longer in captivity due from the loss of their habitat and predators and hunters and industries. And they also increase and save the population of an endangered species.
So pretty much they're going to live longer, thrive. Also, like here are some also other facts from animals are being endangered from what we saw at the zoo. This is coming from the yellow-footed tortoise. Vulnerable due to habit loss and overhunting for food. That's an example.
Okay, so as our opponent said that an animal out in the wild is more susceptible to get in danger and to get wounded and to get hurt, and that there's no medical attention out there. But that's just the way life works out there. It's just, the circle of life. It's just the food chain. Some animals are made to be put out there so that they die to feed the other animals, or else there would be an overabundance of herbivores, and all the plants would die off. But the carnivores are there to take them out. That's why some die, because they just need to die. That's just the way life works. It's like saying, with us, for example, we kill animals because we need food. If we didn't do that, most of us wouldn't get, the meat we wouldn't have today. That's just one of the many examples as to why the animals die out there in the future, out there in the wild, just the way that, that we kill animals here.
I can relate. We can relate animals to us, how we have to go and find a job and go and pay bills and go and get a house and go and pay your gas and everything like that. and the money isn't given to us, the knowledge isn't given to us to sustain ourselves. And zoos do that to animals. They sustain them. They don't teach them what to do or how they're supposed to do in the wild. Because once they're released in the wild, they have no idea what to do and then they die. So that is the reason why zoos are bad, because they don't teach anything to the animals. They don't let them be any better of what an animal should be in the wild.
Also, about the issue that they've raised with the water, that they kind of have to gamble on the water to see if it's good and healthy or not. Most of the animals know where their good and clean water is at. That's why they always go to that same area. For example, watering holes. That resource of water is always there, and it's most of the time always clean for them, unless of course some kind of pollution comes in and enters it and just ruins it all for that niche. So then it just won't be good anymore. But most of the time it's always good and all, just for all the animals there.
They say that animals live longer in captivity, and it's been proven by experts that they actually live half of their lifespan shorter than what they should live in the wild, which is a lie.
By keeping animals locked up, we are taking away their freedom, just as we would do with prisoners. The animals are locked up for our own purpose, and says that we can keep animals locked up for our own use, for example, entertainment. And then the younger generation sees this, and they start growing up thinking that it's okay to just take the life of anything and just put it behind bars and just take it for our own use and say that it's okay to do this. It sends a message that animal life basically has no entitlement to themselves and that they have nothing for themselves. It's teaching them that we can control the life of anything and whatever we want to teach. In a quote by the Captive Animals Protection Society, they said, "The practice implies that the animals' own lives should hold no inherent value to their own right, and keeping the animals in zoos, therefore, have a negative educational impact." Meaning that, all that I just said right now, that the youth will grow up seeing this and thinking it's okay. We're basically setting a bad example for tomorrow's future if we keep all these animals in captivity.
Zoos fall short on an animal's behavior and is discussed very, it doesn't discuss at all practically. It only talks about how they provide food, they provide safety and everything. And the only thing that is actually taught is that it's acceptable, like what Christian said, acceptable to control every aspect of an animal's life.
In another quote, "Animals in zoos despair so much over their lack of space, privacy, physical exercise, and mental stimulation that they often resort to self-mutilation and other abnormal and self-destructive behaviors, displaying a mental condition that experts call zoochosis. This explains why some animals, such as the elephants, sway their trunks back and forth. That's just something that they're not used to, and they're deprived of the space they need." And that's where we end.
All right, you guys have, hold on, you have 3 minutes, starting now.
Okay, look at a human perspective. Why do we live in society, pretty much? It's a lot easier to live in it, pretty much. I mean, we have people coming in, like, we don't hunt for our own food. We pretty much buy our own food at a food market for pretty much working for it. and the people who bring those food, they also work for that. Pretty much we'll work together. Animals kind of, all species of the animals kind of, they don't work together. They pretty much just work on their own. The reason, like, why do we live in houses? We don't live out in the open. Animals need to, like, it's a lot easier for animals to live in shelter, put them in a captivity. They'll be a lot protected, pretty much. For example, like, we got quotes from some signs at the zoos. For example, like, I was unable to finish last time for the yellow-footed tortoise. The reason why they're due to loss of population is, they quote, they're vulnerable due to habitat loss and overhunting for food.
And then near threatened due to habitat loss and hunting for its meat and skin. Like, some people don't eat meat. Like, some people are vegetarians and don't like to hunt animals because they feel sorry for them because of their meat. So they just decide to go vegetarian instead.
Another one, this is an example for the jaguars. As jaguars' habitat shrinks, conflict between ranchers and jaguars are more common. So pretty much, if you don't want animals hurting other people in their own habitat, you want them to keep them secured in a zoo captivity so they won't hurt other people, pretty much. Also, like what they said earlier, we kill animals for our own meat because due to the circle of life. The only animals that we pretty much commonly kill is like
Cows and chickens.
And also, like, if they say that we're doing animal cruelty, what's the difference between a zoo, if it's an animal cruelty thing? And I mean, if we do it, then why not just keep the zoo if it's animal cruelty? But again, I don't think zoos are bad for the animals, again. For example, like, let's go to pretty much what helps out, like for education. From an article from, let's see, from E. Howe, from Bolton, Naomi, they quote, "Natural habitats and zoo enclosures are an important way for further education the public about ecosystems and interdependence of living creatures.